When something exciting happens, there will be as many stories about that event as there are people who witnessed it. No story will be the same, and only by knowing and inspecting every single one of those people can we get to the truth of what happened. In Durarara, every character has their own thing going on, their own goals and motivations that drive their actions and dictate their decisions. Nobody is the main character in Durarara, but everyone is the protagonist of their own stories, as mundane or as fascinating as they may be. A bumpkin excited to experience the big Tokyo city as he decides to escape the boring life of a small town, or a headless rider driving around the Ikebukuro district, radiating a mysterious aura that makes the bumpkin stunned with amazement. A tall black Russian man who works at a sushi shop. Yes, I'm not tripping. Or an underground doctor who deals with patients behind the law who also happens to live together with a headless rider. A dangerous information broker who's infatuated with humans and loves to put them in all kinds of crazy situations to observe their reactions. Or a superhuman bartender who smokes way too much and may or may not be infatuated with the information broker as he doesn't miss a chance to physically attack him. A Van gang with two sadistic otakus, a high schooler who's the ex-leader of a street gang, a girl infatuated with her brother, and a brother infatuated with a head. Different people with different goals and different stories all tangled up in the same city that never sleeps. A city full of stories, characters with their own dark secrets, a slowly unraveling mystery full of disturbing subplots. This is the Chaos of Durarara. Only by experiencing the events of the city through the eyes of the characters involved, we can put the pieces together and understand what has really happened. This is known as an ensemble cast of characters. It's a writing style that Ryogo Narita, the author of Durarara, specializes on. All of his books are written with an ensemble cast, which is basically a large group of dynamic characters that contribute equally to the plot through their own unique points of view, resulting in a story without a clear main protagonist. Think about Pulp Fiction, The Usual Suspects, The Departed, or, Lord of the Rings. Or in terms of anime, The Eccentric Family, K-Project, Monogatari series. But you see, Ryogo Narita took this writing style and made it its bitch. He perfected it through his books and then applied it to Durarara. First of all, the characters need to share the screen time equally, more or less, and second, the ensemble needs to be full of clear personalities, diverse goals, interests and perspectives. And I don't think I've seen a more brilliant portrayal of that than in the first event that happens in Durarara. What's crazy is that it occurs in the first 2 episodes. So the first episode starts with the narration of Mikado, this shy teen who moved to Tokyo at the request of his friend Kida to escape his boring small town life. At first glance it appears like he is the protagonist, but you'll quickly realize that a different character narrates each episode, some of which you may need to decide for yourselves. Now, while Kida introduces Mikado to the wonders of Ikebukuro and to some of his friends they meet along the way, Erika and Walker, we get a few glimpses of this random girl in the background, Ryo Kamichika, but you wouldn't know her name yet. What you would soon find out is that she gets kidnapped by this guy who she thought met online. In the back of the van and away she goes. But maybe she got lucky because this man seemed to see the whole incident. Perhaps he'll call the police and her fate might change. We'll have to wait and see because we jump back to Mikado and Kida walking around Ikebukuro and they meet some other people Kida seems familiar with. A tall Russian guy who runs a sushi shop, a guy with superhuman strength named Shizo whom Kida advises Mikado not to go near, and then we jump back to the kidnapping where a black rider appears. She fights off the thugs, chases after them, and while that happens, we get information about the Black Rider through a chat window where some people are discussing it, making us wonder who those people are. In the midst of it, an interesting name pops up in their conversation, Dotachin. Who and what's a Dotachin, we'll have to wait and see. Once again we jump back to Mikado and Kida, where we learn that Mikado should avoid this man named Isao Orihara at all costs. Shortly after they bump into a girl with a weird scar around her neck who freaks out and just runs away. The episode then ends with Mikado finally seeing the Black Rider, and with a lot of unanswered questions, but with half the job done. The other half comes in the second episode. Now, we have already met almost every character that's part of this ensemble, and it was already established that they had something going on for themselves. Who is the Black Rider and why did she save the girl? Why did this man watch the kidnapping? Why was Shizuo throwing around vending machines? What's the deal with these two otakus? Why should Mikado stay away from Izaya and Shizuo? Who was this girl? Why did she have a neck scar? Why did she freak out? Every character we saw already brought with it so many freaking questions. Now the second episode aims to polish what we saw in the first. It starts with the narration of another character, a woman. We don't know who she is, but she introduces a new character, Anriso Nohara. She also talks about the kidnapped girl we saw in the previous episode. Amidst this, we learn that one Mika Harima is absent from class and we meet a boy, Seiji Agiri, who for some unknown reason decides to quit school altogether. The narrator then talks about Ryo Kamichika's family situation, how her father was unfaithful, how her mother didn't mind it, how unhappy she was with her life. We learn that she talks with somebody named Nakura who seems to understand her about her unhappiness and dark thoughts. Nakura, who we learn is actually the man who saw her kidnapping and the main kid that told Mikado to avoid at all costs, Izaya Orihara. It turns out he hired those thugs to kidnap Ryo and then hired the Black Rider to rescue her and bring her to him. Talk about crazy twists. But right before the Black Rider drops her off to Izaya, we learn that the Black Rider was the narrator all along, and her name is Celti. Then we get this incredible sequence with Izaya and Ryo where we learn the true nature of Izaya. He pushes Ryo to the extreme where she jumps off a building, but is saved by Celti. Then we cut back to the start of the episode where it seems like this new girl, Anriso Nohara, was actually friends with the absent girl, Mika Harima, and she's asking a very pissed Seiji about her. The episode then ends with Celti meeting Izaya. What's interesting is that now you can look at every character we have seen so far and associate them with a different personality. Mikado seems like a shy, soft-spoken bunkin excited to be in the big city. Kida is an outgoing, loud and charismatic guy. Izaya is a deceiving guy with a twisted obsession for people. Shizuo definitely has violence issues. Simon, a chill Russian guy who sells sushi. Erika and Walker, crazy otakus. Every character stands out with their unique personalities and traits, and we're talking about 2 episodes here. Now imagine a whole season. The other important thing of an ensemble cast is to have a common thread. Basically, it is something that can link the cast together, like a common theme, a shared purpose, some event or conflict, something that takes a collection of random characters and turns them into a cohesive cast, something that binds the stories together. In Durarara, we have Ikebukuro to play the main role, the district of Tokyo itself, but also the gang named the Dollars, which I'm going to talk about in a second. All these characters live in Ikebukuro and know each other, so whenever something happens in it, it affects all of them to a lesser or greater extent. The other thing is that they are all part of this gang called the Dollars. Without spoilers, it's an online group with an unknown leader regarded as a color gang without a color, so that nobody would know who's a member and who isn't. A gang that thrives on these 3 phrases: no rules, no restrictions, no chain of command. It's also the central mystery of the first season. Durarara's narrative and way of threading the story and connecting these characters is phenomenal. After the characters have been properly set up and the story begins, each episode focuses on a bunch of different characters, meaning that we get a new perspective for almost every episode. And these often take place at the same time. The timeline goes back and forth over and over again to show how one event leads to another. In one episode, we might see Mikado and Kida walking around Ikebukuro trying to find Sonohara, while in the background we see some people fighting. A fight that is completely irrelevant to the importance of the episode, but one that will become important in another episode where a relevant character takes the POV. A vending machine that is briefly shown to be thrown in the air might be in an episode later where we see the same day but from another perspective. All these events are connected to one another, nothing is a coincidence. And what's interesting is that all the characters and their actions constantly affect everything else in one way or another, even if some of these characters have never seen each other before. Durarara can be defined as a collection of love stories, but in all the most unconventional ways. Romantic love isn't something you'll find here. On the other hand, it is full of obsessions and different ways of loving different things. A guy who loves humans, a guy who loves a head, a guy who loves a headless thing, a woman who loves a brother in the Alabama sense. Chaos is Durarara, but is not to be taken as a failure of storytelling. In fact, Durarara has no conventional story at all. By the end of a season, you'll be left asking what had actually taken place, what had changed. And Durarara will tell you that nothing changed, and that life moves on as it should.